I've done videos on the need to be kind to yourself and have positive self-talk. But how mean are you to the child version of yourself? I know that we've talked about being kind to yourself in the midst of making bad decisions in the moment. I've talked to you about being kind to yourself by using positive self-talk. But I wonder how you look back on your past and how hard you are on yourself. You know, I'm 38 years old. Time is ticking away. And I look back on my lifetime and different mistakes that I've made along the way, and I'm really hard on myself. And here's what I want you to think about when you think about the mistakes that you've made in your life. You are looking back on your younger self as a smaller version of your present self. How much more life experience, how much more lessons and consequences and rewards have come along the way to get you to where you are today. And you look at yourself in that way and you go back and you see some stupid mistake you've made from the past and you think, man, I wish I could do that over again. Sure, I get it. But the language we use to talk to ourselves about the mistakes that we made is the way that we would talk to our present day self. So the person that made that mistake in the past is not a present day self. In fact, some of those things may not even be mistakes. Let's think about that for a minute. Maybe you have a story of abuse and trauma, and you look back and you think, I wish I would have fought back, or I wish I would have stood up for mom, or I wish I would have said no. These sorts of conversations that we have with ourselves, and we beat up on ourselves for not having firmer boundaries and all of these sorts of things. But what I want to point out is even the language that I'm using right now is language that a 38-year-old Nathan would use. It's not language that a 5-year-old Nathan would use or a 3-year-old Nathan would use. I think it's really important that when we think back on our childhood, our teenage years, young adult years, some of you may be looking at these videos and thinking 38 is really young, I wish I could do that over again. But when we look back on these younger versions of ourselves, we need to realize we were looking at the world out of a context of the information that we had at the time. So if you're thinking, I wish I would have fought back, I wish I would have said no to that person who took advantage of me. Well, how old were you when that happened? Can you get a picture of a child that is that age in your mind? If something happened to you when you were 5 years old and you wish you would have fought back, can you picture a 5-year-old child right now? I really want you to try to remember that. And if that kid were to say, I wish I would have said no, or I wish I would have fought back, and a grown individual is using their experience and knowledge against a child, would we use the same language to tell that child, yeah, you should have said no? I don't think so. That child doesn't have the understanding. In fact, if that's all the child has ever known, how would they even know to say no? So when you look back on your younger self and you beat up on yourself and the neuroplasticity that happens, the brain connections that have happened based on those experiences that you thought you did something wrong, or you're beating up on yourself for something that happened, realize that came out of a context that you probably didn't even know any different. And the brain made its connections from that and carried out into your present day self. And some of the things that you've got going on, just the baggage you carry along with you, came out of that brokenness that was a child, a 5-year-old child that didn't know any better, that didn't have anything else to compare it to. That child just thought that was normal, didn't even know to question it. So now when that stuff is coming out in your life now, and you're hard on yourself now, talk to the little child version of yourself. Get a picture of yourself when you were a child. And the things that you're saying, imagine that picture is saying that to you, and have that conversation with that child. I imagine you start to talk to yourself just a little bit differently. Let's all work on being kinder to ourselves.